This episode of Around the Oval is brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. Hey, Ohio State fans, Alex Gleitman here, back with another edition of Around the Oval, brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. The Buckeyes are coming off a huge weekend. Not only did they beat Penn State, one of their in-conference and division rivals, 33-24 in a game that maybe made fans a little bit uncomfortable, but probably was good long-term for the team. But they also hosted a slew of big-time recruits. On my count, at least 50 big-time recruits that almost every program in the country would take. And it was just a massive recruiting weekend, a number of official visitors, a ton of underclassmen taking unofficial visits. They had most of their commitments in the house. And so we're going to break that all down, as well as where the team is heading into their game against Nebraska. And to do that, I bring in Bill the Bank Greene, my fellow recruiting analyst at Buckeye Scoop. Bank, thanks for joining the show. Appreciate your time.
Hey man, glad to be here. It's a good week to talk football and recruiting, especially.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll dive right into it and just kind of give some quick snapshot overviews on our thoughts on where Ohio State stands with a number of recruits that were there this weekend. We'll mainly focus on 2022s, maybe touch on a couple in-state 2023 guys before we jump to where the Buckeyes are on the season. So let's dive right into it. Offensive lineman Ernest Green from St. John Bosco out in California, in for his official visit this weekend. What are you hearing on your nephew, Ernie Green?
Yeah, I don't think it's terrible news, but I kind of think Georgia had the lead coming into this thing. And I still would favor Georgia right now. But not to say that Texas would be out of it or Ohio State would be out of it. I don't think he's going to announce soon. And so I think there's work to be done for Ohio State. Could they still get him? Yeah, I think they can. But I thought they had him in June. I thought it was done, over and out. I mean, the kid flew on his own dime to work out with the staff. He knew he was going to be coming back for an official visit, so there was really no reason. He didn't have to work out to earn an offer. I mean, they wanted him badly, but he came on his own dime, so I thought that was huge for them. And I don't know how Georgia snuck in the front door here, this back door, the side door, but they have. And if I had to make a pick today, I think it would be Georgia, but I'm kind of trying to, put the puzzle together here. Not for sure. And I think Ohio State can win this one, but I think there's work still to be done.
Yeah, I'm probably on the same page as you. I was, I thought they had him in the summer, and when he was supposed to come back for the Oregon visit, I thought that would be it, done and over. And then, yeah, Georgia, great official visit there. Who knows? Maybe he got there and it's just like, this is home, right? But even then, I was still kind of like, Ohio State has their official. I expected what I was hearing from the Ohio State side this weekend after the visit to be like, yep, we feel like we turned the tide and we got the kid, or at least like, we feel we're in better position. And that is not the feedback I've gotten. I've gotten feedback that they're not sure that they've done enough, or, hey, we think, he had a great time, but I don't know. And that's not what you want to hear coming out of the visit. And that's not what you're hearing on some other kids. So I'm with you, Bill. I am a little concerned about that, but I will say, I do think that things could be looking positive for a guy we didn't think that they were going to get, but I think that they might be getting now. And Carson Hinsman from Wisconsin. I'll let you go first. I put up a story on Buckeye Scoop with Carson. I've been talking to him a lot. I've checked with a couple of different sources, but Bill, what do you think about Carson Hinsman? This is a real interesting one because it's really hard to pull a offensive lineman from the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I never really bought into this one until after this weekend. When he showed up, that was a huge move, I thought. And then talking to people, a post-visit was like, whoa, like I've been reading this one wrong. I've never really thought he was a serious candidate to be in this class. And I think you and Mark have had better information on this one than me. And I kind of admitted that when I've written my articles, like, I don't have a good feel for this one, but I sure thought, he was headed to Wisconsin for sure. And I don't feel that way right now. I'm not, I'm kind of leaning on you, or maybe leaning on Mark. I'm kind of not sure what to think. I've got a source on this one, but I think my guy could be wrong on this one. So I'm kind of leaning on you guys, but boy, everything sure seems to be that the trend is toward Ohio State for Carson Hinsman.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you could put your money down on in-state lineman from Wisconsin signing with Wisconsin, and you're going to be right 90% plus of the time. So, playing those odds is pretty good. And I think, to me, he took the official visit in June. Great. You got him on campus. I think after that, he was still going to Wisconsin. And then the interesting thing is he came back for an unofficial visit for the Oregon game. Okay, great. But he was at Wisconsin the week before for that Penn State game. And so to me, it was kind of like, maybe like, okay, he's just checking the box, one more visit to each school, and then he's still going to pick Wisconsin. But for him to come back, and I'll say this, I mean, this is a kid, he's a true Midwest kid. And when you talk to him, like, you don't feel like you're getting played by like a South Florida kid. Like, he is genuine. Like, he really was impressed with Ohio State. Like, his family was really impressed with Ohio State. But at the end of the day, like, he grew up a Wisconsin fan. He lives in Wisconsin. Like, they obviously produce great offensive linemen. And then, but then he comes back for this game. And that's big to me. I agree, because why are you coming back for this game if you're going to Wisconsin? There's no reason to come to this game. And I think right now this is a head versus heart game. Wow. I think his heart is in Wisconsin just because he grew up, he's a fan. It's like a kid who grew up in Ohio.
Yep.
Probably grew up a Buckeye fan, right? But if your head is telling you that there's a better fit for you and you're getting a feel in your body that maybe you fit in better somewhere else, that's a tough battle for him internally. And I don't know if anything's done yet, but he told me he's going to start working on a recruiting commitment video and things like that.
Wow.
And for him to say that coming off the visit, I'll say, if I had to pick today, gun to my head, I think I would actually pick Ohio State.
Wow.
So it's real interesting. I wouldn't be shocked if it's Wisconsin. I don't want to, play both sides of the fence here, because I'm going to say right now, my prediction is Ohio State, and I will tell people if that changes one way, or, if I double down on that, or if I want to back off that. But I think Ohio State might land this kid. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch. I know when you talk about feelings and things inside, one kid you've been talking about is Hero Canoe.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, because you got to watch that first couple interactions with him and the Ohio State staff up close and personal this summer. And I know you've had a pretty good feel for this one since then. So
yeah. Hero, the nice thing about camp at Ohio State now is, under Ryan Day, is like the access is so amazing now. We used to have, back in the day when I first started, we had no access to camps, and then you could come, but you had to stand like 100 miles away and couldn't take any pictures, couldn't take any video. Now, I mean, we're in the position groups with the kids, and the coaches. And I really, for some reason, just really took a liking to that kid. I liked his film, but then seeing him in person, it was like, whoa, this guy's he's really good. He's better than I thought he was. He's bigger than I thought he was. He's quicker than I thought he was. And I love one-on-ones in camp because there's no shoulder pads. There's no, they're just battling, just dudes going at it, so you find out who's a coward real quick there. And he was a bad dude. He went against Josh Padilla a lot. And I mean, that was no contest. Hero just demolished him, which he's going to demolish a lot of people. He's good. But the relationship between he and Larry Johnson was like, he was like a puppy dog. Like, he couldn't get enough of Larry Johnson. And he was there with that group of guys, those foreign kids. And I think the next day his group went to Michigan, and he was like, I don't want to go up there. I don't need to see there. I'm not interested in them. I don't want to leave here. And that was a direct quote from him, not to me, but to someone else. And I was just standing there and overheard it. Like, I thought the guy was going to enroll and skip his senior year and do Quinn Ewers. He loved Ohio State that much. So it just made an impression on me. And it just reminded me of maybe, I don't know, maybe he's a different, he reminds me of Jake Stoneburner, I think I would say, because Jake was that kind of guy in high school. He wore his heart on his sleeve, wasn't a game player, just kind of told you how he felt. And that's the way I see Hero, just that kind of guy. And he did not want to leave Ohio State in June. So then he comes back with his mom, and I just, this is one that I'm not really digging on sources or trying to read the tea leaves or to me, I think I have my final answer. And I'm going to be shocked if this kid goes anywhere, but Ohio State. I just feel that the relationship with Larry Johnson, just how he was so comfortable at Ohio State, and I'm the original comfort and relationship guy. Like, I don't care if it makes sense. If the kid's comfortable with that spot and the relationship is great with the position coach, I think it's over. So I'm sticking with Hero Kanu to Ohio State. If it doesn't happen, I'm going to be really, really surprised.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Spoke to his mom after the visit. She loved it.
Yeah.
They checked all the boxes. And I think she was really impressed with the non-football aspects that they showed them on the official visit, and check that box with mom. And then you're good to go from there.
Well, we talk about it a lot. I mean, Ohio State can do official visits.
Yep.
I mean, with the best. And I'm talking Alabama, Clemson, Georgia. I don't care who you want to mention. If they can just get that kid on campus for an extended period of time, run the Real Life Wednesday program by him. Mark Pantoni, Ryan Day, it was like that with Urban too. These guys know how to do official visits. Mark Pantoni's been doing this since the Ronald Powell and Aaron Hernandez, Tim Tebow days at Florida, and they were awesome at it then. And he's still, the best in the country at what he does. So once they get a kid on campus, man, they're so good at getting the signature, getting the purchase order. So yeah, I'm totally down with Hero Kanu to Ohio State.
Yeah, and another defensive lineman that they had in there was Kaden Curry. Made his official visit a few weeks back. I think it was the Oregon game, and then came back for an unofficial visit. He was also there in the summer at one point. I'll just come out and say I got him to Ohio State. I don't know if he's going to take his Alabama visit or not. I know he's supposed to, and he probably will because he's been very thorough with the process. But from everything I hear, this kid's in. I wouldn't be shocked to hear if it happens in the very near future, like before signing day. So that's my opinion on Kaden Curry. I don't know what you got, Bill.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I think I've had him, I've been doing these mock class projections, since I think April. I think I've had him in since then, since I first started writing about him. So I've heard nothing that changes it. Now, the Alabama official visit, did I like seeing that? Nope. You'd much rather see him go visit Purdue or Texas Tech, not Nick Saban in Alabama. So like I say, I think that's something, if it does take place, Ohio State's going to have to, they're going to have to get through that because, as well as Ohio State does official visits, man, you don't want a kid you're going after to take an official to Alabama. You just don't want that. But if it happens, it happens. And Ohio State has won those battles before. They've won head-to-head with Nick Saban in recruiting battles, and they've won them. So I think Kaden Curry's coming to Ohio State. But, I don't think they sleep well that weekend knowing he's at Alabama either.
Yeah, no, and we'll see if he actually shows up in Tuscaloosa.
Right.
If he doesn't, it's probably going to happen real soon. But I bet he goes down there, and as you said, you don't want to give Nick Saban 48 hours with these guys because you never know what's going to happen. But I think it's good that he's from Indiana, from the Midwest, got family ties to the Buckeyes, so that could be good. Let's talk about the last defensive lineman, a guy who I've had trouble until this weekend, I think, getting a read on, Amari Abor from Texas. Bill, what are you hearing on Amari Abor? I mean, we've had him at different points, I think, to Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, maybe Texas, Ohio State. Where
LSU? I don't know. I've heard.
Where's your intel right now?
Well, I think Alabama has walked away, and that's good. That's very good. I think Amari Abor has walked away from Oklahoma, and I think that's good. So now you're down to like A&M, which they're local, Texas local. I don't think the kid wants to stay local. I really don't. I don't think LSU's really in it with the mess they've gone through. So yeah, I think Ohio State is probably going to be the choice here. If I had to make a wager on where he goes, I would go with Ohio State. Now, I don't think it's over yet. I don't think it's done, but I think they've laid the groundwork to get this kid. And I would have him as probably the favorite, the leader in the clubhouse with, a one-shot lead here with 18 holes to go. Still work to do. You don't want to sleep on him, but I think they can get Amari Abor.
Yeah, I think they're going to get him. I think what I wanted to see this weekend was what I heard coming into this visit was like maybe his concern with Kenyatta Jackson being in the class and how am I going to be used and what does the depth chart look like with Sawyer and JT ahead of me, like 1 year. And I think that's, Larry Johnson, there may not be anyone better than sitting down with him and the parents, throwing on the film and running down their plan for their 3 to 5 years at Ohio State. And that's what he did. And I think he passed with more than flying colors, A++ in the grade for Larry Johnson, from what I'm hearing. I think everything he was saying to people there, other recruits, like it is looking good right now. But again, with this kid, I am just not sold until he signs. So, I think the thing with Texas A&M to think about, you mentioned Alabama's walks away. He walks away from Oklahoma. A&M is filling up with D linemen.
Wow.
Right. So Eni White, I think, is going to go to Texas A&M because
Shamar Stewart, possibly.
Shamar Stewart, I think they're in a good spot. And, our former coworker, Steve Wilfong, I saw crystal balled Walter Nolan to Texas A&M.
Oh, I did not see that.
Which now, that crystal ball might change about 7 times between now and when Walter. Steve is good.
He's a competitor. He's a competitor, like we say, but man, he's good. He's good at his game. I didn't see that. He crystal balled Walter Nolan to A&M.
So, even if they think that they have a chance at
Walter, these kids read those crystal balls as much as we do.
Yeah.
They know what's going on.
So what I'm saying is, while could Amari Abor commit to Texas A&M today? Absolutely. But you start to see what they might be putting together and, I don't know, that could become problematic for them. So, and I don't think you want to put yourself in a position that's a risky move going to Texas right now. I think as a defensive prospect, you're not as proven to be developed. So I think Ohio State's in a good spot. Last thing I'll touch on for 2022, guys, the 2 safeties, Xavier Wampa and Zion Branch. I know a lot of people felt that these 2 may not go to the same school. I've never bought that. I think that as long as you pitch it right to them, that you're good. What do you think about these guys, Bill?
I think Branch is all but in, and I've had him in forever in the class. I never bought the USC stuff. Now, if they go ahead and make some sort of crazy splash hire, then, we'll see. But I don't think USC is going to hire their coach before Branch signs. So I think Ohio State's getting him. I think they're going to get the younger brother too. So I feel really strong that Zion Branch is going to be in this class. With Wampa, man, I don't know. The one thing for me is that all along in this, Ohio State has been a constant. Like 1 week, it looks like, A&M's made a move. Then, Notre Dame's made a move. It's Notre Dame and Ohio State. No, it's A&M and Ohio State. Now he might stay home and go to Iowa or Ohio State. The one constant through this whole thing has been Ohio State. They are always mentioned. No one has ever, I've never heard a word that, it's A&M or Notre Dame, Ohio State's out. And I've always had them getting this kid more confident in Branch than Wampa, but these 2 can absolutely play together. They're different players totally. And I think that part would be like one of the easiest. I think I could sit down with Xavier in a room and show him how Ohio State would play him and Branch together. And if a dummy like me can do that, I guarantee you Matt Barnes, Kerry Combs, those guys can do that like no problem. And I believe it. I think there is room for both of those kids on the field at the same time. They're different players totally.
Yeah, right now it's Wampa, you are Ronnie Hickman, and Zion Branch, you are playing the Bryson Shaw role. Yep.
Yeah, and both of you, I'll put both of you in the NFL within 3 to 4 years. So yeah, I think that part is easy, and I feel stronger about Branch than I do Wampa, but I won't be surprised if they get both of them. I think what I wrote today is if you get one of them, you're happy as heck. I mean, that's a win, a recruiting win. If you get both of them, then Ryan Day takes that bottle of champagne out of the cabinet and he pours a drink for him and Barnes and Combs and they toast. So you get both of them in, you bust out the good champagne and celebrate it.
Yeah, I think I'm with you all the way on that one. I don't need to expand more on it. I talked to Zion after the visit. I talked to some other people who spent a lot of time with him and his family. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, he canceled his Alabama visit for this weekend. That tells you all you need to know. He might go to USC one more time, but I think, to your point, the instability there or the uncertainty there is going to help Ohio State big time. Because I think all things equal, like if USC was USC with a stable coach and winning the Pac-12, I think they would be the pick. But they're not. So. All right. And then last thing, we'll talk recruiting before moving on and wrapping up with the Buckeyes. Two interesting in-state visits this weekend. Josh Padilla from Uber Heights, Wayne, had the visit, told our Mick Walker that he is approaching a decision soon. And then Lakota East, Austin Searveld, who wasn't really on any of our radars, I don't think. And, probably, COVID year last year and obviously kind of just emerging onto the scene this year. He visits and he lands an offer from Ohio State. So I know I spoke to him and I'll comment on that, but Bill, you've seen Josh, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess, I know he didn't have a great camp showing at Ohio State. I mean, what's your opinion on him as a player? And, do you think Ohio State's going to be able to land him over Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan, a few others that are in there?
Yeah, I think he's going to be a center. Okay. I think he's clearly an inside guy, and I think he's a center for Ohio State. I like him, when I saw Hero Canoe kind of get the best of him, Josh, a year younger, still developing. Hero's going to get the best of a lot of people before he quits playing football. So that didn't really bother me that much. If Josh had stoned Hero Canoe, that would have raised him up in my eyes a ton, but I think he's a good player. I think Ohio State can get him. This kid's done a pretty good job of playing his cards close to the vest here. So if I had to make a pick, I do think Ohio State will get him. I think they want him, and I think they would take him today. So that's a big part of this too. So, I just see a kid that has really played his cards close to the vest. And if you go back over the last 4 or 5 years, the inclination is to say, oh, Ohio kid, Ohio State offer, done. No, I can put a list together of Ohio State, of in-state kids that Ohio State has offered and wanted on the O-line. That list is pretty long of those kids that have said no. It's not one or two. It's huge. So I don't think it's an automatic as it would be if it was Brian Hartline offering a receiver. So I think they can get Padilla. I think they want Padilla. And, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I'm with you. They wouldn't keep bringing him back on these visits if they didn't want him.
Right.
And, the thing I love about him is he's a wrestler, and I love those kids who understand leverage and playing with leverage and on both sides of the line. I think that's huge. So I like that. And I like, once you get him with Mickey Marotti and get some weight on him, he's a center all the way. Agree. Yeah. So the Searville kid, we both talked about this before. We think he's a tackle.
Yes.
I spoke to him, and I mean, this kid grew up rooting for Ohio State, and, it's early. So I think he's going to take his time. I think he's got Cincinnati and Michigan State offers. I'm sure a few more will come in, and maybe he'll take some visits just to make sure that, he's not just going in with his heart. And making the right decision. But I do think Ohio State is going to land this kid as long as they will take him. And like you pointed out to me before we started recording, they're not offering a 23 kid if they don't want him. I mean, he would have to completely take multiple steps back over the next year or so. So I think this is a kid that they are eventually going to land. And it's someone we probably have to start looking at the film a little bit more on to develop some opinions. So definitely excited to do that. Now let's talk about the game a little bit. Ohio State, they struggled for the first time in probably since the Tulsa game. But they came away with, I never felt that they weren't in control of the game. You never felt like they were really in jeopardy of losing it, but they had opportunities to pull away multiple times and they couldn't do it. And I think a lot of people were surprised they weren't able to run the ball at first, despite Illinois running for whatever it was, nearly 350 yards against them. Sean Clifford all of a sudden looked healthy. It was not the Penn State team that you saw in the back half of that Iowa game without Clifford, and it wasn't the Penn State team you saw struggle against Illinois in a terrible loss the week before. James Franklin has a history of getting these Penn State teams, no matter how good or bad they are, to play up to Ohio State. And dictate the way the game is played, which I'm most impressed with. So, but Ohio State, a win's a win. How do you view this Ohio State team after this game?
I thought the win was very helpful. I thought the game was helpful to where they want to be. You can beat these semi-MAC teams, Indiana, Rutgers, Maryland. You can beat them 60-0. I don't know what you get out of a game like that when everything you call works. You lock down their offense, you do everything, it's easy. Well, you get in the playoffs, it's not easy. This was a playoff game for Ohio State. The Penn State game was absolutely a playoff game. If you lose, you're out. I mean, you're going to get in with 2 losses, I'll tell you. And Penn State, I've said it, so many times, like, if you're a Penn State fan, a diehard fan, James Franklin has to be the most frustrating coach that you have, because he does so many good things, and there's so much there to like about how he gets his teams to prepare and battle and fight. I mean, they come into Ohio State, their season was over. They picked up their second loss the week before. It wasn't that long ago. They were going to be like ranked number 2 in the country. Hang on and beat Iowa, beat the crap out of Illinois, and they're ranked ahead of Ohio State at that point. Well, it didn't happen. They had one of the most horrible losses you could ever have to Illinois. And you're thinking, well, this team's going to pack it in. There's nothing to play for. They played as hard as any team has played Ohio State in the past few years. I mean, they come to battle and fight. They needed to turn that game into a street fight. Ryan Day wants a track meet. They didn't let it happen. They controlled they didn't control the game, but they controlled the pace of the game and how it was played. And there they are with a minute to go, down 6, get that last field goal blocked and let them run it in, like we saw 4 or 5 years ago, and you lose. So I thought it was a great game for Ohio State to have to dig and scrap and kick and fight and claw their way to a win, rather than beating Maryland by 60, where it's fun and games the whole time. So I'm a big believer in learning how to win, learning how to play under pressure. CJ Stroud, he can make those throws against Rutgers when it's 7-on-7. Nobody's rushing him. They can't cover those guys, and it's easy. Well, it wasn't easy this time against Joey Porter and Brisker and those guys. So I thought it was a great test for Ohio State. I thought they passed it. If people aren't following it, this is the year of the upset in college football. I mean, there have been more like 20-point underdogs win so far this year than we've seen in the last 10 years. So win and move on, man. I mean, we saw Bama get beat by A&M. Everybody's getting beat but Georgia right now. So win your game, get better, move on. You learn about your team now, where when you play Rutgers, everything works. What do you work on when everything's an A+? Well, they have things to work on now. The inside running game, that defense is still a work in progress. There's still some work to do there, but I think Ryan Day has a better handle on this team right now after the Penn State game than he did the previous 4 games.
Yeah. And, you bring up a great point about learning how to win. And it was about almost 7 years to the day. It was 5 days off, but 7 years since that 2014 team was up 17-0. Penn State scored 17 unanswered points. They went into overtime. JT Barrett had to gut out, on a bad knee.
Yeah, he was hurt.
2 touchdowns in overtime, and Joey Bosa with the walk-off sack on Christian Hackenberg. And to me, that was the turning point of that team in that 2014 season. And they ended up going out and kicking Michigan State's ass. And, it was kind of over from there, right? And not that this was as dramatic of a win as that one, but I think it was very similar and a very similar point in the season where, they were coasting against easy teams, and then you get yourself in a street fight, and can you come out on top? And they did. And I think you mentioned CJ Stroud, and the thing I loved about him against Tulsa when they struggled, it was on him. He was not playing well. He was not. But this game, it was not on him to me. He did not. I'm not saying he made exceptional plays like Justin Fields would have and put the team on his back and maybe won the game, or Dwayne Haskins a couple years ago. But he didn't make mistakes. Critical mistakes. He didn't turn the ball over, and he hit the throws he was supposed to throw. There was just like little things where they weren't converting in the red zone, penalties and getting stuffed in the run, and maybe some play calls, they would like to have a few of those back.
I think so.
I do think CJ Stroud needs to start keeping the ball on the reads a little bit more. I don't think that helps when people are doing what Penn State did and what Oregon did to them in the run game. But I think, I know they don't want to get him hurt either, right? So
no way. And Ryan Day is not big, on the quarterback running. I mean, they didn't run Justin.
I think if you're gonna run the read look though, I think you got to keep it every now and then and keep him honest, even if he slides after 6 yards or whatever. But that's going to be interesting to watch. And I think the even more thing to me that's going to tell me about this team is how do they respond this week in Lincoln, Nebraska, on the road, the big noon game, 11 a.m. local time. You're going to have a really good crowd in Lincoln. The home team always shows up, those hometown fans in Lincoln. The spread worries me a little bit. It's down to, I think, 14.5.
Yeah.
And I know Nebraska's played a lot of teams tough, and maybe people are worried about seeing how Ohio State struggled a little bit with Penn State. Nebraska almost beat Oklahoma. They almost beat Michigan. All their losses are very, very close games.
Talented.
3 points in the East Lansing in overtime.
Yes. They're talented. I don't think people realize
but they're 3-6, and Ohio State's only a 14.5 point favorite. Are you nervous for Ohio State in this game?
Not so much losing, but I think they could be in a battle. I mean, Nebraska, if you look at the record, you think that, well, okay, here's Maryland, here's Rutgers again. And no, I don't think so. I think Nebraska is really talented. What they're doing this year and what they've done under Scott Frost is find ways to lose. They battle for, 55 minutes, and then there's 5 minutes of they go brain dead. They make the dumbest mistakes, but they've been good enough to play with Oklahoma, to play with Michigan State. These are two undefeated teams. So Nebraska is talented, and I always look back to that when he was a freshman. Adrian Martinez had Ohio State on the ropes, in the shoe. And you thought, this guy's going to get better year after year after year. By his final year, this guy's going to be a handful. Well, he's regressed, but I just can't get that out of my mind when Adrian Martinez went up and down the field on them, and he looked like he was really going to be something. So they're
probably from all the hits he's taken over the last 4 years.
Darn, yeah, but so they do have talent. They've just found ways to lose, and I can't see them beating Ohio State, but I can see it being one of those things where they're a pest. I don't think it'll be 55-6. I don't think it'll be Maryland. I don't think it'll be Rutgers. I don't think it'll be Indiana. I think they will battle similar to what Penn State did. I just don't think they're as good as Penn State. So I think maybe a game where it's closer.
Kind of like Minnesota, maybe.
Yeah, closer to when everybody's comfortable with. But then in the fourth quarter, Ohio State puts them away. But the 14-point spread, I don't know. I thought that line would be 20 or 22 or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay away from. I'm gonna stay away from that one. But if I had to make a play, I'd pick Ohio State straight up. But I think I would take maybe the points with Nebraska, and I could see that being, I don't know, a 38-24 game or something like that, right? And
I could see it.
You lose the spread, right? So I could see it. I just wouldn't touch it, because if Ohio State does come out and they do win, whatever, 45-14, that will be impressive to me. I think that will be impressive.
I think so too. Because Nebraska, like I said, don't look at the record. Go in there and look at the scores. Look at the teams that they've played, that they've lost to, but yet have taken them almost to the wire.
Yep. And the last thing we'll wrap up with is, college football playoff first rankings came out, and I don't think you can put a ton of stock into these, because every year, if you look at the first rankings versus the last rankings, what was Ohio State in 2014? They might have been like 14th or something like that in the rankings, and they end up in the playoffs and win it all. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I think the positioning to some extent is important. And just going off the top 8, just to read them off: Georgia number 1, Alabama 2, Michigan State 3, Oregon 4, Ohio State 5, Cincinnati 6. Michigan 7 and Oklahoma 8. I guess for me, the two things, and then I'll kick it to you, Bill, to close this out, is that I took away is one, Cincinnati's screwed. I think they got hosed. They needed to be in like that top 4, maybe even 5 to have a shot. But I think there's just, they need too much to happen, I think, and their schedule is not going to get any better while everyone else is going to be playing tougher competition. So they need some chaos across multiple conferences and, you know, multiple scenarios. Cause I even think like, I wouldn't even be shocked if, like, let's say Ohio State barely beats Michigan State and Michigan State finishes 11-1. I wouldn't even be completely shocked if they put in a 1-loss Michigan State who lost by 3 points in the shoe over Cincinnati, right? Or even a 2-loss Alabama if they lost a close game to Georgia or something like that. So it's clear that they don't respect Cincinnati in the conference that they play in, which is unfortunate because we love Luke Fickell. I think he's got a hell of a team.
Yeah.
They did what they're supposed to do. But I think they're in a bad shape. But I do think what I'll say is also Ohio State is in really, really, really good shape. I think as long as they win out, I think they're in the playoff. Being ahead of Oklahoma, I think is huge. I think, you know, having to play the number 3 team in Michigan State, the number 7 team in Michigan at the end of the year. And then in the Big Ten championship game right now, Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin, I think are 20, 21, 22, something like that. So they'll maybe be a top 15 team by the time they play whoever that is in the West. And those are going to be 3 really good wins at the end of the year if Ohio State can get all of them. And I just see no way that the committee leaves Ohio State out if they go 12-1 as Big Ten champs. What are your takes on everything, Bill?
Yeah, the one thing we've seen over the years is I think the committee is they're almost cruel in how they do this. Like they think they're doing people a favor by listing them up near the top early and they keep them there. But then that final ranking, they just demolish them. And it was like, oh, hey, we made you feel good all year, though. Yeah, but you pulled the rug out from under, you know. Yeah. That's what they do. For Cincinnati, I think Luke needs that second loss out of Bama, get him out of there so there's not 2 from the SEC. He really needs a second loss out of Ohio State, to be honest. He needs them out of there as well. And then the Big Ten gets kind of jumbled if Michigan State picks up a loss along the way, but somehow, you know, finds their way there. As a 12-1 team, you can almost make a case for an undefeated UC, but you know, I think they need Ohio State and Bama out of there to have a shot. I think with Ohio State being behind Oregon, I think they're rewarding Oregon for beating Ohio State in Ohio. I don't think if this was the final ranking, I don't think they would put Oregon in ahead of Ohio State. I think they're kind of playing the game here, making it look good. And I think
it will work itself out. Oregon probably loses again at some point to Utah in a couple weeks. And
Oregon is probably, you know, you hate to say probably with all the upsets, but it looks like they're going to have to beat Utah twice in a few weeks span there. First time in Utah, second time in the Pac-12 championship game on a neutral. Kyle Whittingham's tough to beat, man. He's really tough to beat. So
it's not happening.
I can see. I think the committee kind of feels like throw them a bone, put them ahead of Ohio State now. They'll lose, they'll get out of there. So I think Ohio State's in a great spot. I almost think I think Bama went out and they're in. Georgia's in even if they pick up a loss, I think. I know some people don't feel that way. I do. Ohio State,
as long as they have one loss.
Yeah. If they lose to Bama in the SEC title game, they've been the big dog.
Yeah, they're in.
They're in. Ohio State went out in. I think everybody else, man, is in precarious spots. I mean, what they did to Oklahoma really shocked me as an undefeated team, and they kicked them squarely in the pants. We'll use that term. So, but to me, I follow this every year, and the only one I look at is the final one because that's really the only one that counts. And it means nothing. Like people say, oh, well, for 6 now we have no chance. No, don't worry about it. At the end of the year, I think they do a great job of getting the final 4 teams right. I think they're completely ridiculous how they do it leading up to that. Why do we even have this show? What was the point other than to promote ESPN and to promote college football? I mean, there's no reason to have a show like that until the end, but It's all part of the production. But for me, for Ohio State, if they win out, I see no chance that they're not in this Final Four.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, with that, we'll close out the show. We'll see how Ohio State does in Lincoln this weekend. Bang, thanks for joining the show. Listeners, thanks for joining us for another episode of Around the Oval, brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. We will see you next week. This episode of Around the Oval was brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. If you've been thinking about refinancing or buying a house, check out our sponsor, Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. They offer low rates for refinancing and home purchase loans, including first-time home buyer programs, down payment assistance, and cash-out home equity loans. Check out revolutionmortgage.com/tpennington.